Pete Davidson is now known as the funny comedian who was engaged to none other than Ariana Grande. And then, less than 5 months after the two lovebirds got engaged, they called it quits. But that hasn't stopped him from talking about his turbulent romance. And while we imagine that it takes time to get over a breakup, there's something off about Pete. Do you think it might have something to do with his whirlwind relationship to Ari? Make sure to watch this video until the end to see why Pete Davidson fans are starting to get worried.
I was leaving my building and my doorman said, "Yo man, somebody trying to kill you."
Pete Davidson seemed to be doing alright for a while. In fact, he was the happiest guy in the whole universe. And why wouldn't he be? He fell head over heels in love with singer Ariana Grande. According to a few theories, the two of them met on the set of Saturday Night Live. At first, they were a little bit awkward with one another. In fact, you might say their initial on-camera reaction was anything but a love match. But the chemistry was undeniable. Soon enough, they got to know each other better backstage and totally hit it off. Pete eventually went to see Ariana's opening performance at the Billboard Music Awards. Witnesses claim they saw Pete with his arms wrapped around the singer. And that's how the world knew the jig was up. The couple had gone from zero to hot item in just a few short months. But jaws dropped on the floor when the two lovebirds announced they were actually engaged.
Well, you got engaged to Ariana Grande? Yep.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, thank you.
According to Ari herself, she found Pete totally irresistible from day one. She even admits she's not the type of girl who gets crushes on random guys, but she took one look at him and told her manager, "I'm marrying him 100%. Maybe Pete won her over with his in-your-face type of humor. Apparently, that's the only explanation that made sense to most of their followers. And while some haters were totally not feeling their engagement, others were rooting for the happy new couple. But when a relationship progresses this fast, it tends to burn out just as quickly. Their love could have lasted a lifetime, but it wasn't meant to be. What could have ended such a seemingly powerful love match? It may have something to do with a terrible tragedy that struck very close to Ariana Grande's heart. Ari dated rapper Mac Miller for about 2 years. Then, in May 2018, Ariana released an emotional statement where she announced they were no longer dating. She gushed about Mac and even called him her best friend in the whole world. While the two were no longer an item, Ariana was still grateful of having him in her life as a friend. But that didn't last long. People started accusing Ariana of ditching Mac when he needed her the most. The hate got so bad she even had to go on Twitter to defend herself. She ended up exposing Mac's issues with sobriety in a very public way. The relationship got so toxic for Ari that she simply had to walk away. To add insult to injury, she had moved on in a very public way with Pete. So when Mac passed away, his fans started blaming Ariana, claiming she was the reason he took his own life. Ari was heartbroken by the accusations and had to block Instagram comments to keep haters from talking smack. But then fans took a sharp turn straight for Pete. They decided to let him have it and make him feel horrible over Mac's death. If that wasn't bad enough, many fans felt like Pete wasn't good enough for Ariana due to his mental health issues. This undoubtedly bruised his ego in the worst way possible. It may have also caused a lot of emotional turmoil, which would poison even the healthiest relationship. And that's exactly what happened. The negativity was quickly tearing these lovebirds apart. In the end, Ari simply couldn't take it anymore. That's when everything started to crumble. But it wouldn't be the last blow for Pete. Things were about to get even more complicated. We all know that breakups are usually hard, but they're even harder when you have to do it while the whole world is watching. The way Ari and Pete finalized their relationship was pretty painful for both of them, but it seems like Pete took it especially hard. Rumors claim they ended up breaking up after Mac Miller's passing, but the speculation got way out of hand. And if that wasn't bad enough, Pete received lots of hate on social media as well. At one point, things got so bad that he simply had to open up about what was really going on. According to E! News, he opened the comedy show Judd and Pete for America by admitting that he didn't want to be there. He jokingly asked if anyone was looking for a roommate. He was obviously talking about the fact that he would no longer stay at the $16 million apartment he used to share with Ari. But Pete wasn't alone. He had a support system of friends, and he was also spending some quality time with his family after the split. During the show, he also joked about how he had to cover the tattoos he got when he was dating Ariana. And while half the audience felt bad for Pete, there was the other half who felt for Ari. After all, it's rare that both people come out a winner after a breakup. Some wanted this relationship to work out for both of them. But regardless, it was safe to assume that Ari wasn't doing so well after her engagement got called off. until she decided it was time to say thank you next and move on to a brand new chapter in her life. Ariana Grande broke the internet when she released her Thank You Next music video, and it was loaded with some hilarious jabs at a lot of her exes, but it's not the kind of dissing you'd come to expect from a music star of her level. In the video, Ari came out with her own version of Mean Girls and even parodied a bunch of all-time classic movies. She called out all her ex-boyfriends, starting with Big Sean. Ariana can be seen writing in the burn book, gushing over how cute Sean is. She even wrote he could still get it. This made fans wonder if she was hinting at a possible friends with benefits type of relationship, but she was just getting started. She then called out another ex, Ricky Alvarez, calling him a good dancer and saying they'd be friends forever. Next came Pete, whom she could have ripped to shreds, but Ariana kept it pretty classy and even seemed kind of apologetic. She wrote down, "Sorry I dipped," on his photo and reminded Pete she would love him forever. When fans saw the music video, they were elated. Instead of shading her exes, she actually thanked them for the lessons she learned from each and every one of them. But Pete didn't see it that way. In fact, he didn't even know it was coming out or that he would be in it. Can you imagine how shocked he must have been? Poor Pete was out and about with some friends when the track was released, and being the source material for Ari's empowerment song didn't settle too well with him. In a recent stand-up, he claimed the day the song came out was a pretty sad day for him. Fans were starting to feel like Pete was a ticking time bomb. He had already been through an engagement, a breakup, and even had to stay out of social media for a while. Perhaps the pressure of being in the limelight thanks to his very public relationship and everything that followed caused him to spiral out of control.
How's the album coming? Are we close to an album? Are we?
Yes, my album is coming this summer.
After its debut, Ariana Grande's Thank You Next song topped the Billboard Hot 100 in 2018. But in the middle of Ari's victory, something dark had happened. Pete's Instagram account was shut down after he posted a message that freaked everyone out, including Ari. His post mentioned that he didn't want to be on this earth anymore, and that he was having a hard time trying to stay for someone. Pete even said that he wasn't sure how much longer he could last. As soon as followers and friends read what he wrote, they went into total panic mode. But they weren't the only ones. The New York Police Department paid a visit to NBC headquarters to perform a wellness check. They made it to Pete's workplace to make sure that he was okay, but they weren't the only ones. Celebs like Jada Pinkett Smith, Nicki Minaj, and Machine Gun Kelly also sent Pete their support, and the love kept pouring in to remind him that all hope was not lost. But they weren't the only ones who reached out. Ariana feared for the well-being of her ex, as she still had loving feelings for him. She had apparently made it to 30 Rockefeller Center and tweeted that she was outside and wasn't going anywhere. It became obvious to fans that although the two were no longer together, Ari wanted nothing but the best for Pete. He refused to meet up with her, but pretty soon afterward, Pete decided to put his big boy pants and face the reality of what was happening. Pete was at the studios that afternoon preparing to shoot another entertaining episode of Saturday Night Live. He must have been having a bad moment and simply needed to vent on social media. That's how the whole scandal broke out. But shortly after posting that scary message, he went on with the show like a real trooper and took the stage on SNL. To viewers and audiences, it seemed like he had enough of all the drama that came after his public breakup. During his brief SNL appearance, he decided to air his dirty laundry. In one of the show's popular segments, he joked about how he scared everyone with his disturbing Instagram post, and by the end of the segment, he said that he didn't mention her once. Of course, he was talking about Ariana, but when Jonah Hill was hosting SNL, Pete couldn't help but talk about his engagement again. He went on to ask singer Maggie Rogers if she wanted to marry him.
Hey, Maggie, I'm Pete.
Hey, Pete.
You want to get married?
No.
Then Pete jokingly said 0 for 3, which was an obvious jab at his cancelled engagement to Ariana Grande. Some fans even speculated he was also talking about a possible engagement with his ex, Cassie David. Everyone had a good laugh, but the art of comedy was totally lost on Ari, who didn't find it very funny at all. Ariana had been trying to show him some support, and we're sure she didn't appreciate being used as source material for Pete's amusement. In fact, she responded to Pete's joke on Twitter by writing, "For someone who claims to hate relevancy, you sure love clinging to it." But while these two are no longer lovers or friends, Pete isn't ready to give up on love. The rumor mill is on fire after Pete and actress Kate Beckinsale were seen together on more than one occasion. But in case you've been living under a rock, here's a little reminder. Kate made a name for herself by starring in the Underworld movie franchise and doing a banging job as Celine, a vampire warrior. Whether they're working on a project together or not, no one's sure when these two met exactly, but some suggest that they were first seen at the Golden Globes after party. They were allegedly hanging on the outdoor patio, and they were very flirty with one another. Kate may have had her hand on his knees while she laughed at his jokes. The two were also photographed leaving the comedy venue Largo at the Coronet, where Pete does stand-up. But has the comedian found true love, or is this just a rebound after all the drama he experienced with Ariana? Well, a source told Us Weekly that Kate likes young guys who make her laugh. That certainly fits Pete's description, don't you agree? But while neither one of them have come out and confirmed the rumors, Pete still seems stuck on his ex. He's been caught making jokes and talking about Ariana on more than one occasion. Apparently, Ariana took things too far when she commented on his manhood while they were dating, and it didn't sit well with him. But it seems as though Pete is opening up to doing things he never did before after his very public split. Besides, hanging out with the 45-year-old stunning actress, he's also spending time with people he considered his mortal enemies. When Kanye West made a guest appearance on SNL in 2018, audiences went crazy. He got a lot of hatred for wearing a MAGA hat and delivering a pro-Trump speech. Needless to say, Kanye got booed like no other, but Pete seemed particularly triggered by his comments, so he used the show's Weekend Update segment to throw some major shade at the rapper. Pete claimed that what Kanye said was one of the most awkward things he had ever heard. He asked Kanye to get back on his meds to deal with mental issues because being mentally ill wasn't an excuse to act like a jackass. So after that, you'd imagine that the last person Pete would want to hang out with would be Kanye West. But boy, you'd be so wrong. The rapper has been hanging out with Pete ever since he made that alarming Instagram post. We're guessing they both have a lot in common since Pete suffers from borderline personality disorder. But aside from hanging with Kanye, Pete has also brought his hilarious anecdotes and his eccentric sense of humor to Northwestern University. And if that wasn't enough, Pete is set to star in a semi-autobiographical movie while juggling his duties on SNL. Pete may have been acting a bit erratic and perhaps took things too far with that Instagram post. Clearly, it was a cry for help, but now he seems to be in a much better place and trying to stay as busy as ever, which seems to be working for him. So perhaps Pete is ready to say thank you next to all these scandals and move on to happier and bigger things. Do you feel that Pete Davidson is going to be okay in the end, or will he crack after everything that's happening in his life? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to The Talko.